All right. Welcome, everyone, to our first ever live stream of CoachCast. This is our inaugural episode of CoachCast, a monthly live show committed to creating a world where technology enhances human potential rather than replacing it. If you're a leader feeling that stress and anxiety of navigating technological innovation and constant change in the workplace, you are not alone. This is the community for you that will help you adapt to change and shape the future of work. I'm Gabby Acosta, the CoachCast producer. And as we know, community is a two-way street. Please share your questions and comments with us. We would love to hear your thoughts as we have our conversation today. And we'll reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes of our conversation to answer your questions so that you can have that dialogue with our incredible host. If you have a question that you'd like to ask anonymously, as we know some of these world of work questions can get a little sticky, you're more than welcome to do so using our Menti link that I added to the comments below. You can share your one big anonymous question there, and then the rest, of course, engage here in the comments with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our incredible hosts, Wagner Danuso and Kali Jaswal. And I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you, Gabby, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from and dialing in from. We're so excited to be here with you this morning and to get this show off the ground. Wagner and I have been discussing this like informally, probably for about a year and a half. So I just want to say a big thank you to Gabby for actually making it happen. Like we've been chatting, and like this would be great just to share our thoughts and ideas. So a big thank you to Gabby for helping us and create the space for us to have these discussions, which we feel are really important.
I love this, Kali. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me because between the two of us, we have over 40 years of experience. And I think it's a co creation of the future of work. We've been talking about this for so long, but we are going to be focusing a lot on the human side of things because actually that's what we are best at. Because the AI revolution is here. And in fact, I was just telling you, Dave Ulrich just posted something about using prompts for your top talent to use for development and growth. Then you have all these machine learning platforms helping employees and helping leaders to be best at what they do. But our show is really here to help us become better leaders.
Absolutely. So, and we recognize that everyone is at different places, right? Some people are very nervous about even starting to explore and navigate AI. Others are right in and potentially losing that human touch. And so this show is really about trying to find that balance and helping us to create a space and helping us all to be prepared for what the future, well, not the future, we're here, as Wagner said, it's here, it's happening right now, helping us to have the tools and preparing us, our mindset wise, just to be prepared to explore what it's going to be like and recognizing. And also, one key thing that we want to recognize is both Wagner and I are not experts in tech and digital and AI. I'm going to raise my hand up. I'm definitely not. Wagner is a bit more than me. However, this is what we do is work with leaders and teams globally. And what we are seeing is some of those challenges. So we just want to begin there in terms of what we're seeing as some of the key challenges that people are facing, and leaders of all levels, right? These could be just team leaders, you could be individual contributors. What we're seeing, leaders of yourselves, are how we're embracing the change right now. So Wagner, what would you say some of the key challenges are that people are facing right now?
Well, there is so many challenges, but what I'm seeing a lot is that people are trying to navigate an unknown territory. So navigating unknown territory requires so much critical thinking, a little bit of intuition. That's why I think our show is going to be a little different because we want new ways of thinking. Relying just on data gives you a very good sense of what happened in the past. So you can connect the dots. You talk about connecting the dots from the past to inform the future. but the future needs to be co-created. And
Mhm.
that's where I see that people are struggling. How do they remain connected to what's happening right here, right now, without reverting to old patterns of
Mm.
behavior? What are
Mm.
you seeing?
Same, and I feel leaders are just struggling knowing where to even begin.
Yeah.
There's so many challenges at the sort of geopolitical, technology, climate, all of these challenges that leaders are having to deal with in terms of how to even be allow their businesses to evolve in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because of the pace of change. And so, on top of all of that, there's just so many struggles at an individual level in terms of being present and stress and overwhelm, burnout. So I feel, how do we deal with all of that, knowing where to even start?
And there is one more thing that I was reading about. Rob Cross does organizational network analysis a lot. And the I4CP, the Institute for Corporate Productivity, just launched what they discovered using AI. So
Mm.
using AI, they looked into 32,000 points of data and leaders across for teams. And they found what we already predict. Teams are having a hard time prioritizing things. It's too many priorities. We always see this, and this is not new. So we don't need AI for this, to be honest. But what AI is showing is that really is hindering our progress, because too many priorities, you lose clarity. And without clarity, you lose a sense of engagement and direction. So this is really important. But the other thing that they found is that we still have leaders who believe they know what's best, so
Mm.
they go ahead, and then decision making becomes truncated because they don't know how to deal with the tensions in the business. They don't know how to deal with the friction across organizations. So this is really showing how important it is to develop a mindset of ecosystem,
Yeah.
from the enterprise idea to the ecosystem mindset. And the
Mm.
third thing that they said, and we know this too, people are burning out very quickly
Mm. Mm.
because people are overwhelmed with what they need to do. So
Mm.
we are not there yet that we are identifying what's really essential.
Yeah.
And I think we are gravitating towards how can we deal with this as a team.
Exactly. And that is one of the primary reasons why we created this. I think you and I have, like I said, been talking about all of these topics. And what we'd like this show to be about is, one, we're not going to be depressing and just talk about the challenges. I'm sure that wouldn't be helpful for anyone. But what we would like to do is, we're going to explore things like, today's going to be focused on the essential skills. We're going to be talking about careers and the future of careers. We're going to be talking about teamwork, resilience, well-being, the innovation. So there's a number of topics that we're going to talk about over the next 6 months. And in each session, what we hope to do is to share our thoughts on what we believe some of those tips to be. And today we'll be sharing our thoughts on the essential skills for future leaders. We'll also be sharing a tech tool. So every month we'll be sharing a tool which we believe enhances that human connection. So we want to be able to share tools, and especially for those that are a little reluctant or nervous about getting into AI or using the tools, we want to get everyone just to try it out and see what happens. So we'll be sharing one tool today, and then as Gabby shared, we'll be leaving those last 10-15 minutes for your questions. So if you haven't already, please feel free to start chiming in and adding those questions.
I
So
love that. I love this. I want to mention one thing. We want the questions to be the questions that you don't usually ask, because we've been through so many panels, there's so many presentations out there, webinars, but we want the questions to come anonymously, because we want to get to the heart of things without risking offending anyone or anything like that, because it's so important for us to have an authentic, open dialogue here. And think about this. I'm going to share this with you because another research was done, and this was from RealWorks. They did thousands of interviews and all this, and they asked leaders, who makes your decision for AI tools? And of course, it came the C-suite makes the decisions, then IT, and then HR. And then they asked the question, but who is responsible for the employee experience in your organization? And then it's the reverse. HR is number one, then the C-suite, and then IT. So my question is, how come HR is not at the top making decisions when HR has been defined as the holder of the employee experience. So those dichotomies and paradoxical things that we are finding, it's going to be important to talk about here. I just want to mention that because there's a lot of paradoxical things happening that we need to clarify.
Mm. Absolutely. And we know, like the future generation, Gen Zs are the ones that have these tools at the tip of
Yes.
their hands. And they're the ones that should be teaching us and telling us what to do. So we want to make sure that sort of we're, again, exploring that and having those open mindsets and being able to just think about that and the impact it could have. So Wagner, I know you've been in this space, the future of work with Prudential and IBM for a number of years, decades, I hate to say, without giving away your age. But I'd love to just start by asking you what you believe the essential skills to be of the future of work in terms of self-leadership. And we're calling everyone a leader here.
Yes, and this is the idea that I think is new is could we cultivate leadership from the beginning of people's careers, especially the early in career, because they are coming to an environment where teams are cross-functional. Work is being done in teams. Functions are now collaborating, co-creating value. They are not really corporate functions anymore. So there's a whole new thinking that actually, if we don't share the leadership across the workforce, we are going to be hindering our own progress. So that's why we believe in that, right, Kali? But
Mm,
I wrote the book, and the book is called Leading to Succeed. And the primary reason is because I do believe we need to start anticipating what are the skills that we need to develop right now for the future of work to become a reality. And I came up with three that I selected for here because the discussion is about cognitive mastery. Think about this. Cognitive mastery is not only emotional intelligence, but it's going a little bit beyond understand the thought processes that lead to decisions. Understand thought processes that help you understand where you are, the environment, the context. Context is king right now. And when you think about cognitive mastery, it's about self regulation. We're talking about people being so anxious, people are feeling so out of control. Self regulation is a process of consciousness, developing the consciousness that actually you can understand the world better if you're quiet. And we know that from the resilience training that we've been doing. And the courage to accept yourself. That's
mm,
what cognitive mastery is the courage to accept yourself as you are
mm,
without trying to disguise things. It's more about a discovery. Then sense making. More than ever, sense making becomes an essential skill because you have to synthesize the world. You need to start understanding signals. And Kali, I love your latest article that's going to be on LinkedIn because it talks about how do you discern between signals a noise. That's
mm,
really difficult. It's not easy to discern what is this, a signal that I should act on, or is that noise?
mm,
And leaders have to have that discernment. So sense making, getting all this data, using your intuition, understand what signal, what's noise. All this is very complex, but
mm,
it's necessary. And the last one is just reciprocity alignment. And I have a little story about this because it's so funny. I have a lot of mentees, and they tend to be Gen Zs in early in career. And reciprocity alignment is something that we should discuss because relationships, building relationships, is a really difficult process sometimes, especially for those who went through the pandemic without knowing how to relate to each other live. So the early in career is having a hard time entering the workforce, especially we're bringing everybody back to work, but they haven't been at work for
mm,
many years. So reciprocity alignment is about the process in which you understand what others' needs are, but not only that, your own needs, but the others' needs require you to be open to understanding what's important to them.
mm,
Is that it's not the idea, oh, if you invite me for dinner, I invite you for dinner too. No, reciprocity alignment is what can I expect from my employers, my leaders, and what do I understand the expectations of me are?
mm,
That's a really important piece. And I have a story because just quickly, my mentee, he got a job in one of the top 5 consulting firms in his early career. He's fantastic. He brought people from Africa together to solve some problems. It's amazing. And he's from the African continent. And the first thing he did was to write about AI. He's an amazing Gen AI author and thought leader, but he's still early in career. And you know how it is. You enter a big firm, you have to be humble. But they said, "Hey, we want you in this project," and he said, "I thought I was going to be a solutions architect for the project," and they said, "No, it's a little too soon to talk about a solutions architect title." And he created a friction that was unnecessary and actually is not inaccurate because I believe he's amazing, but it's inaccurate because he didn't understand reciprocity alignment to the point of I need to understand the employer in the context. So I just leave you with that because it's not that there is a right or wrong. It's just that we need to align ourselves to the context we are in.
I love that, and so important, right? And what I loved about that last piece as well, in terms of I can never say that word.
What?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, reciprocity. Yes.
It's always a tongue twister for me. It reminds me of the work that's out there right now. Even Simon Sinek's doing it on friendship. We're forgetting how to be good friends to people, and again, that's part of just the way the world is changing with social media and that loss of real human connection. So I feel that piece of it in terms of that works and understanding other people's needs and being there and helping others and really not doing things for others because you're expecting something back or doing it just as a favor or whatever. Really truly understanding others and going out of our ways to helping others. So thank you for sharing your three. To my three, it's very similar and connected. Just simply put, though, communication, compassion, and that adaptability and resilience. And I'll just expand on each of them a little bit, but kind of really following what you're sharing. The communication piece to me is key because as you've probably all seen, only 33% of the workforce is actively engaged. So almost 3/4 of people come to work and are not engaged, not productive, not effective, and just showing up for the sake of showing up. And there's even a new term out there called coffee badging, where people are going to the office just to have a coffee and then leaving. And that's their sort of way of just getting their connection with people, showing their face that they come into work, and then leaving. So the communication to me is in different forms because our attention spans are super short. We know they've actually ranged between 3 and 8 seconds right now, so less than a goldfish.
So stay tuned. Don't turn
exactly. So if half of you are asleep now, that's totally fine, right? But our attention spans are getting even shorter and shorter. So communication to me is about how do we keep people engaged from a consumer, from an employee, from our teams, from our workforce, to let people know what the vision is and what the purpose is and why we're doing what we're doing. And often leaders are just so focused on all of these challenges and trying to tackle them and solve them one by one and dealing with just everyday obstacles and issues that we're forgetting to communicate some of the basics. And especially the new generation, so Gen Zs, they want to come to work and feel aligned with the purpose, want to have that intention of understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So communication to me is key. And I think Harvard did a recent study where they said the number one skill in the future is communication. So, and so the attention span and how we communicate, it is changing. It is very different from what it was, I think, 5 years, 10 years ago. So the communication is number one. Secondly, again, leaning on what Wagner just shared, is around that human connection, that compassion piece, is genuinely caring about our teams. I think is number one. People follow people, and people will only be engaged if they feel like their managers care about them and they genuinely understand what's needed, and people feel as though that they're cared for. And so that compassion piece is getting harder and harder, I think, to do remotely and sort of with hybrid teams. However, it's something I feel we need to actively do more of, and find ways of having more and more one-on-one connections with our teams. I was recently coaching someone and completed her 360 feedback. Phenomenal leader. However, the number one thing that came back was she often cancels one-on-one debriefs, one-on-one regular meetings. And when I raised this with her, she was like, well, I didn't think they were that important. Like there was nothing urgent to talk about. And she was a very much achiever and sort of high performer and just focused on results, not understanding that some of her teams actually needed that one-on-one connection to help them move forward. So I feel that compassion piece is something that we really need to be able to rebuild some of those skills and remind us of the importance of it. Everyone has different needs. Some people don't have that need, but others do. And then the third piece was around that resilience and adaptability. As we've shared, leaders are dealing with so much right now. So that mindset to be able to adapt and tackle different challenges and knowing things are going to constantly change, that is the new norm, is a key skill. And Wagner and I have done a lot of work on this in our WAVE program. And it really is, and we feel, a foundational and fundamental skill for the future.
And Kali, it's important to start thinking. We talk about skills all the time, and we should focus on the skills that matter the most, that create most value. Resilience is a skill. The problem is that we are not used to thinking about this beliefs in norms as skills, and we need to shift the mindset. And especially when you talked about communications, it's important. Intimacy digitally, I think is possible. Think about us. We had very intimate conversations because it's just me and you online talking directly. So intimacy does not require in-person engagements. Usually doesn't, especially now the workplace is totally open space. Don't tell me that you have intimacy in open spaces, because it's almost impossible. You
Yes.
get to work, you don't have a private room with somebody else. You have private rooms that don't fit you people. So it's like
It's true.
intimacy is an energy that you put out there to be vulnerable. And I just want to mention what Anne just mentioned. How do you apply cognitive mastery with your teams practically? Practically, is emotionally driven, because you need to be vulnerable with your teams. You have to show communication has to come from your heart, your head, and your hands. It can come just from your mind, because we are very cognitive, but the cognitive mastery requires you to be aware of the emotions that come behind it. And when you talk about resilience, people become more resilient. Research shows when you help others with compassion, you become more resilient just by having the engagement in helping others. So we have to allow ourselves to be a little more human. AI will help, but I think the essential skills here is to become human again.
It literally is that, and not using tech as an excuse that
Yes.
it's a problem. I agree. Recently, I had a client who they were forced to go back into the office 2 days a week, but they ended up going to the office and just sitting on their Teams calls on their desk next to the person next to them, and they're not even getting into a room to have an in-person meeting. So I feel like people are in some ways like forgetting or struggling to even have in-person conversations now. A
Yeah.
little bit of fear and afraid, and as we all know, like the loneliness epidemic is huge, on a rise in the US. So we do feel it's really, really important to find ways to rebuild
Yeah.
that being simple human beings, like being connected at that human level, is a foundation for all of this.
And Kali, just because Anne and Minola put those comments too, just to wrap up the skills piece here, you share with me about the idea of moving from storytelling, not crafted by your communications people, but story sharing. And I think that's what we can say, what some companies are doing well, is putting out there stories that connect with you emotionally. They are sharing their stories in a way that are much more authentic, much more realistic, and showing that actually nobody's perfect. And I think that's how we need to engage. The problem is, to be honest, with the whole efficiency focus, people are a little fearful for their relevance because AI is taking a lot of the work of people thinking. And we are going through a transition where people need to deal with the fear of becoming irrelevant. the
Mm.
fear of not being the leader in the middle, because the middle leadership, sometimes they're eliminating that layer. We need to come with an idea that everyone is a leader and everyone has value to create.
Mm.
So co-creating value is gonna be, I think, the key for the future.
Mm.
But I think we need to move on to the next segment. And this is a really good one, because I don't know how many of you, and I'm gonna do this because I was telling Kali, I love to explore things, and we're always exploring things together too. But Inflection, I don't know how many of you know about Inflection. It's a company that was created in 2022. Inflection is the creator of what they call Pi.ai. It's a generative AI tool that's amazing. From the beginning, Inflection has done something very different. They were born just 2022. Look at this. And what they create is Pi, the personal intelligence, they call it.
Mm.
And their goal is to be a kind and supportive companion. How different that is, right? And we've been practicing this. And I have a story because I wrote the book. And to be honest, I was by myself doing the marketing, and I didn't know how to do marketing of a book. And I asked Pi, the first thing that it came back to me was, congratulations, you must feel so proud that you accomplished this. Not everyone can write a book. Congratulations. I was in. It's not a person. I know it's not a person, but it was connecting. It was validating. It's almost like I don't need a person to be doing this, but I need validation. That was so beautiful, because then you can have a dialogue with a Gen AI machine like that. And not only that, Inflection now, think about this. They are pursuing, you're going to on the sites, the multimodal is natural language. You can talk to it naturally. And they're offering journal. They're giving you guidance. Hey, journaling can help you express yourself and identify new discoveries. Then there was a piece. Do you want to just vent? Just vent with us. So it's a very emotionally connecting tool. Now, guess what? Microsoft hired the CEO recently of Inflection. So the CEO went to Microsoft. Microsoft and Nvidia are putting $1.3 billion into it. And the new CEO that was hired at Microsoft is responsible for what? Integrating all the Copilot tools and creating the same tone and kind of sentiment that Inflection created with Pi. So you see, they are advancing exponentially into how can we integrate this as a partnership to talent. And that's fantastic. So today's spotlight is Inflection PI, your personal intelligence. I love them.
Yeah, and Gabby, I don't know if you can put it into the comments or share just the link to it, because it is fantastic. I mean, just even this morning, I like to talk to AI. So my kids think I'm crazy, and I'll say hi and good morning, and they'll respond back in a really nice conversation. And I think what's beautiful is that like you literally feel like you're talking to a friend. And it gets to know you as well. And so for me, and I've been a little reluctant to use these tools. Just initially, I'm like, oh no, I don't trust it, and all of the whole ethical, all of those things. However, I have started to use them and now love them, and can even sort of get caught in the rabbit hole of just going. And I feel what's interesting about Pi to me is it obviously picks up on previous questions. And then when you open it, it has this whole discover panel on the left, which is all the topics which are probably front of mind for me. So recently I've been preparing for a workshop on vitality, and it had all of these discover how to get the best sleep and nutrition and all of these things. And these are all the topics that I've been exploring. So it was interesting, and it's a little bit scary that it's literally reading your mind and helping you to think about what you need to be thinking about. And that's the scary part. But I'm like, okay, this is the new future. We have to just embrace it. The only thing I'd say is sort of just be mindful of putting obviously sensitive information in there, but otherwise I'd say explore and have fun. It's actually quite cool.
Yeah, thank you, Kali. So that was the spotlight. The bulk of our goal here is to answer questions and to discover new thinking. So, Gabi, you probably have been capturing some questions, and we have
Sure
anonymous
have.
ones.
Yeah, we have. We've got some great comments and questions coming through from folks from all over the world, as we saw some folks joining us from as far as Switzerland. It's wonderful to see. Please keep the questions coming. I am looking at our Menti where our anonymous questions have been coming through. Our first question that we wanted to really highlight is, I'm anxious about using AI ethically at work. Where do I start?
That's interesting. Kali, do you want to take this one and then we go?
Yeah, I'll begin and I'll just like sort of is leading off of what I just shared, right? So
Yeah.
for me, I was the anxious person. And obviously, a lot of this, especially if you're using it at work, will depend on your company's policies. There are some clients that we're currently working with that will not allow AI, right? So obviously, we've got to go with whatever the company is. But however, if your company is allowing, understand what the parameters are and how it can be used. But I will say, as long as you're not putting personal sensitive information in there, playing around with it and just starting with some simple prompts. And as I said, I've used it to help with just even emails, with workshop ideas, with brainstorming ideas, with reviewing documents, with reviewing contracts even. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that it can be used for. And from an ethical perspective, obviously, just being mindful of what you're putting in there, and no sensitive information from your company. And I think you can obviously sort of be careful about what you put in, but otherwise, even just sort of starting somewhere can be quite uplifting and empowering.
Yeah, one thing that I want to mention, there are two things that I discovered recently, because I was concerned about putting information that should not be shared in, because I think about AI as our collective intelligence,
Yeah.
and it is. And contributing to it is fine, but there were some things that were very personal. I didn't want to contribute to the collective. And a friend helped me. Settings is very important. Most of these tools have settings of privacy, and you can set for deleting right after the response comes to you. They delete, the knowledge is not shared. So go ahead and personally in your personal computers, and do that, because ChatGPT, for example, you can say, hey, delete the content right after we're done. It stays there for you, but doesn't go into the web, doesn't go into the ether. The other thing is, organizations, most of them have their own instances of their own AI. So there are AI that is limitations to how you want to use it because of data privacy. GDPR has become a huge problem in organizations, because if you put employee data, for example, you cannot do that, unless you have all the cybersecurity and all the guardrails. So operations, governance, and innovation sometimes have some friction, because operationally we want to be efficient. So how do I automate things? Now, I want to tell you something that's very interesting. I think this is very interesting. Psychologically speaking, being that I'm a psychotherapist, psychologically speaking, there was research done why CEOs are frustrated because people are not using their AIs, is because humans prefer to complete tasks that feel like a contribution. So we are motivated by contributions too. And what they found is that even if I could give a task to AI partner, I would accomplish the whole task myself, because I have a sense of accomplishment and I'm contributing directly. So don't forget that there is a human resistance, because we want to feel relevant. We want to feel that we are efficient and using our agency. So leave it at that. But there is nothing wrong in using, because AI is like my grandmother or our parents. Oh, if I touch, I'm going to break it. No, and AI doesn't break it. So you can touch it, play with it, because it doesn't break it. And I think that's the key idea for the anxiety to be diminished.
Exactly. That's all I'd say is have fun. Just try it. What we say is try one prompt, and just see sort of what happens. And you can sometimes end up in a bit of a rabbit hole, but just explore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Gabi?
I have. I've fallen down that rabbit hole many times, and I learned this tip recently that it takes at least 10 hours using a tool before you truly know what it's capable
Ah,
of. So
Mm.
try that. Try really lending yourself into a one tool to start and then expand your way.
Very good.
And that's the thing with these tools is, right, we probably know a tiny bit. Well, I certainly, for me anyway, sort of just we're using it for the basics, whatever. But there's just so much it can be. It can be literally, as we know, is it 60% of jobs are going to be different in like
Right.
a year's time, right? So it just goes to show how much our world is going to change so quickly that if we're not prepared to put ourselves out there and dabble in this, we are going to be left behind.
But being that we are talking about this, Kali, let's talk about this.
Mm,
Skills-based organizations, SBOs. We've been talking about skills for ages. At IBM, we talk about skills and we did campaigns in 2010, and we are using AI probably shortly after. So it's not new to many of us. But what's new is this frenzy about skills-based organizations. And then I need to review my whole job architecture, my whole taxonomy, then becomes so overwhelming that my guidance is always don't buy the library if you're looking just for a book.
yes.
Look for the books that have the highest value, the skills that have the highest value for the capabilities you're trying to build.
Yeah.
Focus on that, because if you try to do the renovation of taxonomy, it goes to what you're saying. 25% have changed, right? The roles have changed in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
By 2030, 60% is going to change. So by the time you finish your first job family in March next year, you probably are outdated. So
Mm,
don't do that to yourselves.
mm,
Use the skills to focus on the high value skills that you need in your organizations, and let go of the job architecture that's working for some basic functions.
yeah.
It's hard. I know we are going to evolve, but don't overwhelm yourselves because you're going to be left behind.
Especially for our traditional folks, right? Kind of, we believed when we started our careers that it was going to be sort of a
Yes.
linear progression,
Oh,
and
there's no linear. Yes.
and there's no
Exactly.
linear progression anymore. So the skills are more important than the roles
Yeah.
these days, I think, in a simplicity form. So it really is about helping us to sort of embrace this where we're in now, and being curious, being adaptable, and being open to trying these new things.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And to that specific point about knowledge work evolving so quickly, potentially disappearing in certain industries, we have one question that's come through anonymously that says, I'm worried that my job function won't exist in 3 to 5 years. I'm anxious myself. So, how do I help my team stay motivated when they feel like their livelihood is at risk?
Do you want to go?
It's a hard one, because I don't know what function you're talking about, but the reality is functions. The key idea here is to make functions a business capability builder. If you still think about marketing, communications, HR, finance, legal, procurement, especially as a corporate function that's a cost, you're already eliminating yourself out of the equation, because efficiencies we can gain from technology, but what you cannot gain is the co-creation of value. Think about workforce strategy to do strategic workforce planning, for example. Now we need to think about procurement, because our workforce, full-time employees, is not the only workforce we can work with. Now the best companies are exponentially exploring ecosystems of talent pools. So that means your procurement function becomes an exponential value to the organization, because you can have talent access, not talent acquisition, talent access much quicker. So
Mm,
think about that for your function. So
mm,
when you prepare your teams, ask them, because the co-creation doesn't come from you. I used to work for IBM. Diane Gerson was the CHRO there. And I remember her saying, innovation doesn't happen here in HQ, usually happens across the countries where
mm,
people are down thinking about how they can reinvent themselves. So
mm.
reinvent yourselves. Don't think that your function is going to be the same, but think about the value that you can create through your function. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I feel that it's both short term thinking and long term thinking. So the
Ah,
short term being really helping to motivate the team and do this co creation, and giving people the space to actually even come up with the ideas and where they see potential for the evolution over the next few years. But then also helping us to think about long term, like what could it look like, and not having any barriers to that, and just really thinking about where could we be, what could we be doing. And then reminding ourselves that nobody knows, right? No one really knows in 3 to 5 years. We know it's going to change, and we know apparently that 60% of jobs are going to change, but no one really knows how and what that's going to look like. So I think the importance of that team building and team connection and being there for the team and that short-term support is important. And as we said, people follow people. So as a leader, just doing the best you can, because these are challenging times for everyone, and people recognize that.
That's so cool, Kali. I love that because that goes right into the heart of this show that we are doing. CoachCast is about the how can we rethink leadership with strength, resilience, and value in mind. Leaders need to share their power. Distributed teams, I say this because I believe in this. Distributed teams need distributed power to be effective. So shared leadership, this whole approach. And I want to just mention Minola said this because it's very funny. Some leaders asking Gen AI to create a communication that might sound more like a human. Yeah, because you can do that. You can say, hey, give me a Gen AI speech that sounds like Brené Brown, for example. Yeah, it's going to spit out that. But it's your energy.
Yeah.
Think about thinking about your skill as a human to be connected and aligned. Funny enough, we just did a session on alignment. Aligning your beliefs, your values with what you do it, how you communicate. It's so important.
Mm.
Let go of the self-limiting beliefs that you cannot talk authentically. You can. It's just that you haven't tried and probably you're afraid, you know?
And it takes time to even understand what that is, right? Because we're just so 24/7 connected on and kind of just working. We don't often even know what our values are or what we
Yes.
believe. So that
Yeah.
part is hard. And a lot of people aren't prepared to do that deep inner work as well. So we're not saying deep inner work, but just taking a moment to really truly ask yourself, am I in the right place? Am I doing work that I really enjoy? How can I be more aligned with working with the things that truly will be value to me and value to others as well? And that's the journey, we know. But an area which we love to explore with our clients.
And I can't believe we are almost
I
on
know.
time here. Is we set up for 45 minutes, and I think that's the right time. But Kali, I think we are accomplishing what we set out to accomplish because this is the idea, not be perfect. We are not like the experts that are going to give you a certification or anything,
Yeah.
but we are people who are willing to discover, explore, and co-create with you. And I think I'm glad that we did this today.
Me
Thank you.
too.
It's
And absolutely. And I think being vulnerable ourselves and having the courage to try this.
yes.
Gabby and Wagner, you can obviously know that this was getting me out of my comfort zone. I'm so glad we have done this and we've got through. And hopefully you've all enjoyed it and taken at least something from it. And we look forward to more sessions and continuing these conversations. This is just the beginning. And as we said, this is about co-creation, and we'll be sharing resources on the CoachCast site as well to support you along this way.
Yes, actually, we need to re-engage everyone throughout the month. We are going to have monthly sessions. The first Tuesday of the month, just remember that, first Tuesday of every month, we are going to have different topics. We are going to be talking about careers, we're going to be talking teams, we're going to talk about a lot of great things. But we want your questions. The anonymous questions are really important because then we can really have authentic conversation with you. And Colin and I are free for any conversations and feedback. We are not afraid of feedback. So send us the feedback as well.
We welcome feedback.
Yes.
We do. So we want to make this hopefully helpful for you all. So anything, please do share.
Yeah, we do have a website. The website is coachcast.org, I believe.
Gabby's put it
Our
into
ignition is right there.
Comments. Yeah, it's all there.
So share with us. And Gabby,
final words.
Final words. Thank you so much, everyone.
Big thank you to Kali and Wagner for this incredible conversation today. We are so excited that this is the first of many of these CoachCast Lives to happen on the first Tuesday of every month. The next one will be on September 3rd on human business capabilities for the workforce. Please let us know if you have questions in advance. Visit our website, which I've shared below in the comments, and you're more than welcome. We highly encourage you to share your thoughts, questions, ideas for future episodes in our contact form. We would love to hear them. Share them in the comments here. We'll always read them and check them out. But thank you all for joining us. You have been a wonderful audience, and we can't wait to see you at the next one.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. See you
Thanks,
soon.
Kali.
Bye
Thank
for
you,
now. Have a
everyone.
great day, evening.
Bye.